Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the GammaRay Report. My name is Rose GammaRay. I'm an aerospace engineering professional, lifelong science enthusiast, and complete space nerd. And my goal on this channel is simple, and it's to take fascinating science and explain it in a way that's accessible, engaging, and hopefully makes you look at the world and the universe a little bit differently. Um, so, what if I told you that there was an organism here on Earth that could infect another living creature, take control of its behavior, force it to do some very specific things, and then kill it, and then proceed to use its body to spread to new victims? You might assume that I'd be describing a horror movie or maybe a scary video game or some other sort of science fiction. But the freaky part is that I'm not, because this organism actually exists and it's been doing this for a few million years. And tonight we're going to talk about one of the strangest and honestly one of the most unsettling things that I've learned about, which is zombie fungi. And this is real zombie fungi, specifically a group of fungi called Cordyceps, which have evolved the ability to infect insects and manipulate their behavior in ways that almost seem impossible. But the part that really gets people's attention is, could a fungus actually evolve to control humans? And perhaps an even stranger question is, have scientists already created things that are in some ways maybe kind of zombie-like? And so tonight we're not just going to talk about cordyceps, we're also going to explore what a zombie actually is from a scientific perspective. But before we get into any of that, I'd like to introduce my very special, amazing, better than all the rest, one of a kind co-host, Goldie Gamari. Hi, Goldie. How are you?
I'm great, Rose. Oh wait, there's some feedback.
Oh, is there? I
Yeah.
don't. It sounds okay on my
Oh,
end.
you know what? So it's like a okay, it's better now, I think, but sometimes like StreamYard has like this weird, yeah, see, people hear the echo as well. So
Oh no.
um so Rose, sometimes when that happens, okay, so technical glitch, but I don't know what you did. But sometimes when there's a technical glitch, I basically like I just exit and then I come back in. So I just close the browser and I come back in. I don't know what you did to fix the echo, but you did it. So
Oh, okay. I didn't do anything. I it just
oh,
I guess it just went.
magic. Okay, so all right, so then I'll start. So yes, hi everyone, it's me, Goldie. I'm so great to be here, Rose. Such an honor to be here, and yeah, guys, I missed you all. Those of you who are here on the optional school field trip from the Goldie Show and Iran Revolution Live. You know what? Actually, I still hear it, Rose.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know
Uh,
what? I think you know what. Let's try this. So why don't you just like close your browser
okay.
so that you exit and then you come back in?
Okay. I guess I'll see you in a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, do I close all of my browsers or
No,
just
no,
the
just
StreamYard one?
closes the StreamYard browser.
Okay. BRB, guys.
Guys, I'm taking over the channel. I'm taking over the GammaRay Report. Oh my gosh, guys, we're in control. Rose is gone. We're in control. What do we say? What do we do? Oh my gosh, guys. Okay. Like, guys, I have missed you all. But I'm so excited to hear about the zombie apocalypse.
Hello?
Hey.
Hi.
Okay, the echo's gone. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Okay. What did I miss, guys? What did you do? I'm just joking. Well, okay.
Yeah,
Let's rewind a
it's a
couple of
weird
minutes.
technical glitch. Yeah, let's rewind and go back. Okay, you know what? Go back to the solo view and then reintroduce me and then we can start again.
Okay. Guys, pretend this did not happen.
Never
Okay.
mind.
So rewind. Okay. So before we get into any sort of cordyceps or zombie talk, I would like to introduce my very special, one of a kind, absolutely amazing, better than all the rest, and sister co-host, Goldie Gamari. Hi, Goldie.
Hi,
Welcome to the
hello.
GammaRay Report. How are
It,
you?
I'm great. It's great to be here. I had a very busy weekend. I was traveling for work reasons, and I'm going to be speaking all about that tomorrow. But it's so great to be here, and I'm actually really excited about this one because I feel like every Sunday night, like the Gamma Ray Report live stream has pretty much become like this week on how do we die, right? Like science. It's like this week on like how does science kill us next, right? So
That's so funny. Well, okay, so I will say there are some scary things we're going to talk about tonight, but there also are some not so scary things as well that comes along with this specific territory, and we're going to get into all of that. So maybe some of your worries can be alleviated, but TBD, we'll see.
and you normally, like, Rose, I know that you leave the super chat Q&A for the end of your show to answer all the questions, but there's a few comments here that just came up right away that I think is important to share. So Fleshy Interloper says, hope this isn't too terrifying. Fleshy Interloper, I agree. I hope that this isn't too terrifying. Rose, on a scale of like 1 to 10, how terrifying is today's episode going to be?
Okay, Fleshy Interloper, first of all, thanks for the question. Thanks for the super chat. So I will say that on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe this is like a 6, I want to say. Like, it's not that scary. Like, it's a little scary, but not that scary. But also, it's relative. I mean, like, that's for me personally. You thought the sun is scary. So for you, it might be like a completely different ranking and scale, Goldie. So TBD on
Okay.
that.
All right. And then Atki, just another quick comment. Atki says, I played enough The Last of Us to feel frightened about zombie fungi. LOL. Yeah, me too. Me too. Like I've watched The Last of Us. So yeah, zombie fungi, terrifying. I've also actually seen some of those documentaries about like what you're gonna show in the past. It's utterly terrifying. Utterly terrifying.
You know what? It is very creepy. But there are some things that, this is the fungi that we're going to talk about specifically tonight is something that only affects arthropods and like insects specifically. And there's a reason behind this, and we're going to go into that. But there also are
Sorry,
some other.
sorry, for those of us who are not science intelligent, can you just confirm, like, an arthropod is something that has 6 legs? Like an
I
insect with 6 legs? Because I know, like, a spider is not an arthropod, right?
So arthropods, I don't know if it's only 6 legs, but it's they have to have like an exoskeleton, so like a hard
Oh,
outer
so maybe
shell.
that is spider as well. Okay.
Sorry?
So maybe it is spiders as well, maybe.
No, I think
Wait, let me look this up.
I think spiders are arachnids. Spiders, actually, I think they might be. I think arachnids might be part of arthropods, actually, but um, yeah. So they would need this kind of outer external shell. Even like shellfish, Goldie, could be a variety of arthropod, like crab and lobster and things like that, because they have like this hard exterior shell.
Okay.
So I think anthropod is like a type of species with this like exoskeleton.
Okay. So spiders then are arthropods then. Yeah.
Spiders are arthropods, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Um, yeah, so yeah, we're going to talk about cordyceps, and we're also going to talk about some other zombie related um, things in science, and like other things that could potentially create a real life version of a zombie. And so we're going to get into all of that in a bit. But first, I do have a question for the chat. So I have a poll, which is, do you think a zombie apocalypse is actually scientifically possible? So type 1 in the chat for yes and 2 in the chat for no.
And just a quick reminder, anyone who is watching this live stream on my channel, you can't actually participate in the live stream. So you have to go to Rose's channel and watch her live stream in order to put either 1 or 2 in order to participate in the poll. So right now, like I'm literally in Rose's live stream chat, and this is my answer here. This is my answer. It's going to show up in a moment, but yeah, that's my answer. That's my
Okay.
answer.
Okay.
I think it is scientifically possible. I'm just saying.
Interesting.
That's
Okay,
my
so
answer.
while we wait for a couple minutes for the poll to go, I have the first video that we're gonna watch for.
Wait, before you do that, I just want to share this comment from Justin.
Okay, guys. Justin, thank you so much for the reminder. So, guys, get your permission slips ready. Put on your seatbelts because we are about to hop on our magic Q400 plane and go to the special land of mushrooms. And the reason it's a Q400, guys, most of you know now, this was the plane that I worked on when I was an aerospace engineering professional. It's one of my favorite planes. And look, it's got a cute little Q series bottom logo here. Yeah, really great plane. And yeah, we're going to take our magic school plane to go to the land of mushrooms.
You know, Rose, actually, yesterday when I was traveling to Ottawa, I actually rode on a Q400. And when I went on the plane, I was like, this is my sister's plane. She helped build this plane. So
That's
it
so
was kind
funny.
of cool. It was kind of cool, like, flying on a Q400. And I was like, oh my gosh, Rose literally worked on the Q400 series.
I love that. What did you think of the plane? Did you like it?
It was amazing. It was so
Okay.
cool.
The best one you've been on, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Okay. So,
Are you going to stop the chat at some point? Sorry, the poll?
yeah, I was gonna play this video while we were.
Oh yeah, okay, let's do that then.
While the poll was going. Okay. Sorry, I had this set up before I had to.
And the technical glitch happened. Yeah. Welcome to the realities of live streaming. Do you know how many times this has happened to me?
All good. Okay, so this video is just a little intro about what we're gonna talk about tonight. So it's called Zombie Parasite Cordyceps Fungus Takes Over Insects.
Okay, wow, that's a very family. Wow, okay, no nightmares tonight. Thanks.
We're just gonna jump right into it, guys. Okay, let's go.
Fungi and slime molds race to decompose dead matter on the forest floor. Many spread by releasing spores, up to 30,000 a second. If just one of these spores lands in the right place and takes root, it can colonize a whole new area.
Okay, so just one thing I want to mention right off the bat is that fungi and fungus are actually everywhere. So when we think of fungi, we normally think of mushrooms, but the mushroom itself is just the reproductive structure, and the actual organism is often a huge network of these microscopic filaments called hyphae. And what's interesting here is the scale that the narrator is talking about. So he mentioned tens of thousands of spores being released per second. And so fungi. Guys, is it fungi or fungi? I've always been confused about this. Let me know in the chat. But they essentially play like a numbers game. So because most spores fail, they produce an astronomical number of these spores because eventually some of them will land in exactly the right place. And from an evolutionary perspective, fungi are among the most successful decomposers on the planet. So that's why they release like this astronomical amount, because a lot of them don't end up landing where they're supposed to, but some of them might, which is what we're about to see now.
So Rose, just a quick technical thing. Can you just increase the audio on the video?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But not all fungi feed on the dead. Days ago, a spore landed on this ant. Now she's acting strange. A network of roots has infiltrated her muscles. Her body has been taken over by Cordyceps, a parasitic fungus. It floods her brain with chemicals, drugging her, compelling her to head where conditions are perfect. Just the right amount of light, just the right amount of humidity for the parasite growing inside.
Okay, before we get to the next part, which is also really creepy, let's look at the results of our poll. So, Goldie, you voted number 1. Do you think a real zombie outbreak is scientifically possible? You thought yes. And it looks like most people tonight think yes, a zombie outbreak is scientifically possible. What is interesting, though, is what do we mean when we say zombie? So we're going to get into the definition of zombie in a little bit. But I think understanding what zombie actually means from a scientific perspective will definitely help answer this question. But yeah, that's very interesting for most people here who think that a zombie outbreak is scientifically possible.
So are you gonna like stop the poll now? Okay, there we go. Oh,
It forces her to clamp down in a death bite, and Cordyceps reveals its gruesome nature.
Look how it's slithering out.
what is that? Oh my god, what is that?
I love how scary the music is, but I want to touch for a second.
So dramatic.
No, let's go to this frame. I really like this frame.
Oh, so, yeah, of course you would.
I think what's so he mentioned death grip, and I want to touch briefly on what that actually means. So the death grip or the death bite, it's probably one of the most famous examples of behavioral manipulation. And it's essentially when the fungus causes the jaws of the ant to contract and lock into the vegetation that it's on. And so that way, after the ant dies, its body remains elevated in exactly the right location and temperature and like weather conditions for the fungus to continue growing. And so from an evolutionary perspective, the fungus isn't just killing its host, it's essentially turning it into like this carefully positioned platform where it can continue to grow and continue to infect other species as well.
Okay, so then the zombie apocalypse is scientifically possible because that's what happens in zombie movies. The zombies literally go after like the living humans and they lock onto them and they eat them so that the parasites inside them, the cordyceps or whatever, can like continue to grow when their jaws lock on to the living things.
We'll get into that. Don't worry. But sorry, I do want to also mention that this is a time-lapse video. Like it doesn't happen this quickly. So this is time-lapsed, but essentially this is what happens. Should we look at that one more time? It was pretty cool.
Nature.
the ant is pretty much dead at this point.
Oh yeah, the ant dies when it does the death grip. So it does the death grip, and that's why it's called the death grip. So when
Oh
it
my
bites
gosh.
down and clamps down on that vegetation, and like its jaw locks in place and it holds the ant like there forever, that's when it essentially dies, and then the fungus has a chance to grow out of it.
After 3 weeks of growth, Cordyceps can release its own spores, infecting more ants, releasing more spores, infecting more ants, releasing more spores, infecting more ants, infecting more ants, more ants, more ants, more ants.
Infecting more ants, more ants.
Cordyceps can wipe out entire ant colonies. But more than just ants are at risk.
It's a cocoon.
Yeah, that looks like some sort of cocoon.
There are over 600
That looks like a spider.
That's a spider. The Cordyceps
species
spider. And like the
Cordyceps.
the thingy is like going out of the spider into like out of its hiding hole into like the air. Oh man, no way. Oh.
There are over 600 species of Cordyceps spread across the world. Most are found in jungles, where they prey on a whole host of victims.
Okay. That was our little introductory video to get us in the mood.
Yeah. Oh, I'm certainly in the mood for freaking out about the upcoming zombie apocalypse.
Okay, but so I think that gives us a good intro on some of the things that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to dive into some of those elements and talk about the science behind them in a bit more detail. But first, I think I put together like my first of tonight's diagrams, and it's a bit of a fun one. It's kind of I've called it the zombie spectrum. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, so this basically shows zombies in like different forms of pop culture. So on one end of the spectrum, you have the classic Hollywood zombie, and like this is your undead, flesh-eating, supernatural creature. Let me zoom in here. Okay. And this is basically like the zombie that you see in TV shows and movies. And as far as science can tell, Goldie, right now, this version of the zombie does not exist. So the one that we see in number 1, this is not something that we've seen in science today. But as you move further down the spectrum, things start getting a little bit more interesting. So you start getting concepts like the loss of free will, different things like behavioral manipulation, and then also neurological control.
So,
And
okay, sorry. Stopping at number 2. So that kind of coincides with a lot of like cults, you know, like different cults around the world where people are, let's say, programmed to think or behave a certain way, right? Like I'm thinking of that there was like some sort of doomsday cult for like the year 2000, and these people thought that like the world was going to end on the year 2000, and so like there was this weird cult and a whole bunch of them like committed suicide on like the eve of the year 2000.
oh,
And then,
wow.
yeah, and then there was like another one, so there's all like I can think of like all these like, you know, cults where people are so like the loss of free will because they're so indoctrinated in a way
Wow.
that and so to me, like I just want to say, like, you know, all these like cults where people willingly are like they're indoctrinated to the point where like they willingly commit suicide. um like to me that is definitely zombie behavior, because one of the instincts of every living being is to survive, right? Like we have, as an inherent living being, we have that survival instinct. So for
Mm.
any human, let's say, to willingly commit suicide, that means they have been so indoctrinated that they pretty much turn into a zombie, because they're now negating their inherent survival instinct. So that the loss of free will, that's really interesting that that's part of this diagram that you made.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Goldie. And actually, I want you to remember that part you just said about like losing your will to survive, because at some point later this evening, I'm going to talk specifically about that, and we can tie it back to the loss of free will.
Sorry, just really quick. I saw some people mention in the comments. So the cult I was talking about, it was called Heaven's Gate, and
Oh,
it was an American new religious movement known primarily for the mass suicide of its members in 1997. And it was founded in 1974. So the cult was created in 1974, and then they initiated like this mass suicide in 1997 in order to like prepare for like the end of the world in 2000 or something. We were both very young at that time, but I vaguely remembered that. So yeah, thanks everyone in the chat for mentioning that cult name or whatever, because that's what I was thinking about.
yeah, that's really creepy. But you know what? Like, I think there could be these different versions of like what zombie can be, and like that could be a version of what a zombie is. But yeah, definitely very interesting. But sorry, I do want to make a note, because a lot of people have been asking about the graphics and diagrams and charts in general. Goldie, I did actually make a companion pack with all of tonight's graphics. So I'm going to do a quick scroll. So these are all of the graphics that I'm going to be going over tonight in general. But this is now available on my fourth wall page, which I made.
Oh my gosh, did you actually open up a merch store?
Yeah, well, okay, it doesn't have merch in it because I was quite busy this week and I didn't really get a chance to make
I
the
mean,
merch.
this is technically merch.
I made, yeah, so I made a piece of merch. So there's one item up and it's this companion guide. So if anyone is actually interested to follow along and like take a look at the graphics.
Can you put the link to your merch store in the chat?
Yeah, let me do that. And then, so I should say that anyone who's a channel member also gets 60% off the merch, the companion guide. And the discount code is, I made a post earlier today with the discount code. So
if you're a channel member, you see the discount code.
Yeah, you see the discount code on YouTube. So if you're interested,
I'm a channel member. Okay, put the link. Oh, I see the link.
I did.
Can you send the link to me in the private chat as well?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so just we'll test it out. Let me, if anyone gets it and takes a look, let me know what you think. I'm very open to feedback on like what you think of this, because if people are actually interested, I'd be happy to provide some of these companion packs ahead of future live streams if anyone wants to take closer looks at some of these diagrams.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna take a closer look. Let me see here. Okay,
wait, so use the discount code.
Okay, so I'm on your page and I see this. Okay, so I'm gonna add this to my cart. So Zombie Science Companion Pack, add to cart. Oh wait, I added 2. Oops, let me remove 1 because I only need 1. I don't need 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there you go, and then I'm gonna go to checkout.
And then, so under where it says promo code or gift card, you would type in the discount code that you would get from the member.
Okay. So, all right, guys. So I'm going to turn off my screen for a moment so that I don't put in like my credit card information, and I don't put in like the promo code because I'm a channel member. So wait, let me go to Rose's channel. and let me put in the promo code here. And I will tell you guys, I will tell you guys live if this works or not, right? Don't worry, guys. I'm going to let you know if Rose is a scammer or not. If she's scamming us, we'll know.
Yeah, let me know. Listen, I set this up about like 2 hours ago, so like I'm hoping it works, but let me know.
You know what? I will let you know right now. Let's see. Okay, and then billing address. Let me put that in. There we go. And promo code. Oh, it worked. The promo code worked.
Is it showing 60% off?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Okay, so the promo code worked. You know what? Let me just take a screenshot so I can show you guys that I'm not joking about the promo code. So
why would we joke about it?
I don't know.
You
know what? Let me just. You know what? I'll just. I'll buy it and then I'll show my receipt after because the receipt will prove it.
Awesome. But yeah, so guys, it's obviously like this is only for people who
love it. Yeah. So okay. So it says your order is confirmed. So the subtotal was so the price in Canadian is $14.49, and then I put in the discount. Here, let me just show this part because I don't want to give it away. Obviously, the promo code is members only. But here you go. Here's like the final amount. So cool. Oh my gosh, I actually have Rose's like zombie companion pack now, guys.
Yeah. So you could follow along with the graphics if you want.
Oh, this is so cool. And yeah, like wait, where's the image? There you go. So wait, let me remove the there you go. So that was the total price in Canadian. I put in the promo code, and then that was the total price at the bottom. And yeah, I just got my zombie pack. And now I can download it.
Great. Yeah, so it's a PDF, right?
Yeah. Here, let me pull it up. It says zombie science companion pack. Oh my gosh, yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm actually like I don't even want to like say this because like I don't want like you to get a big ego or anything because like I'm your sister and like I don't want like to inflate your ego. This is actually really good.
Oh, you like it? Okay, great. Excellent.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Like this is high quality stuff.
Well, I'm glad you like it, Goldie. And yeah, if anyone wants the graphics, you can get them. And if people are enjoying them, I'm happy to make more ahead of some of our future.
Oh my goch, the cross section of an ant is so cool.
Okay, don't give it away. There's spoilers.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. But like that's part of the caveat. So if you do get the companion pack, you'll get insight into like what we're gonna cover next, which is fine, obviously. But it's kind of like those keeners in class who like to read ahead and like like before the teacher actually goes over a topic, you already know what they're gonna talk about. So that's kind of what it's like.
You know what? And this is actually, honestly, Rose, like this is super cool because I know like a lot of like young children watch your live streams either live or afterwards. So this companion pack that you've made is actually like a really, really like good learning tool so that, especially for children or anyone who's learning about the topic, to follow along, like you said, like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah.
So guys, this is why I've always said Rose is a smart one in the family, right? Like, Rose is the smart one in the family.
No, I just
want to make that very clear.
Okay, so yeah, that was just a little side note, but okay, let's go back into our zombie spectrum for tonight. So okay, essentially this kind of brings us to the question of like, what is actually a zombie? Because traditionally, when most of us think about zombies, we're thinking about like different TVs or movie shows like The Walking Dead or The Last of Us. or just a general idea of like an undead person like moving around and like trying to eat people. And guys, tell me in the chat like what some of your favorite zombie shows or movies are. I'm curious to know what the most popular ones are. But from a scientific perspective, almost none of those characteristics of like what we see in TV show and movie zombies is actually the important part, because science doesn't care whether something is undead or not, because being undead isn't actually a scientific category. But what scientists actually care about is the mechanism. And what that means is, in other words, like what's physically happening, what's biologically happening, what's happening chemically in your body, neurologically. So those are the important mechanical factors. And then when you start thinking about zombies from that perspective, you realize that maybe being a zombie doesn't actually require like being dead at all. And so that's why we don't necessarily look at the undead as being a zombie. And maybe being a zombie means that it's essentially an organism whose normal behavior has been altered or controlled by some sort of external force. So if we think of this definition of zombie, which is some external force affecting the way that you behave or controlling you, maybe that's a more scientific definition of what a zombie could be. And if we use that as a definition, what's interesting is that it kind of moves away from science fiction and starts to become a biology problem. And what's interesting here is that nature has independently evolved the ability to manipulate the behaviors of organisms more than one time. And so cordyceps is just one example, but we're going to talk about some of the other examples as well, which brings me to our second diagram of this evening, which is real life examples of behavioral manipulation. And we're going to go over these ones in more detail. But when you think about evolution, it's essentially just random mutations that happen over time plus natural selection. And somehow over millions and millions of years, evolution repeatedly stumbled into mechanisms that allow one organism to alter the behavior of another organism, because for that particular organism, it was a really effective survival strategy. So it really comes down to the survival strategy of whatever the agent is that's causing the manipulation. So, for example, these can be things like parasites that can cause insects to commit suicide. They could be parasites that remove the fear response from animals.
Wait, what? There are parasites that cause insects to commit suicide?
Yeah. Yeah.
New fear unlocked, guys.
Are you an insect? How is this a fear? You don't need to be scared of this. Insects do.
What if it evolves? What if it evolves and then the parasites come into us and then they make us, like, I don't know, want to commit suicide? I don't know. We're talking about cordyceps.
Yeah. And then you have the like parasites that cause you to not be afraid, so it affects the fear response from different animals. And then you have viruses affecting different aggression and like behavior changes, and mostly aggression. And like this is where you get into things like rabies, for example. And then there are organisms that can force other organisms to move to very specific locations before they die. And this is what cordyceps does by moving the ant to a very specific location on a tree, which is like the ideal spot for that particular fungus to grow and then spread its spores. And then we also have, so those are all of the natural zombie agents. On top of that, there are even examples where humans have experimentally manipulated animal behavior using technology. So we're going to get into that a little bit as well. This is essentially the idea of one organism influencing the behavior of another one. And it's a theme that we've seen recurring in biology. Okay, so we're going to come back to this chart in a bit. But first, we're going to talk more about cordyceps. So, okay, so this is what happens in the case of cordyceps, and talk about like what is actually happening in, The Last of Us, for example, and like how this fungus could actually do what it's doing. So everything starts with that one spore. So if you've ever seen a mushroom release spores, you'll know that, as I mentioned, fungi like to play this numbers game. So they produce thousands and thousands of these spores because the vast majority of them are going to fail. But eventually, one of them is going to land exactly in the right place at exactly in the right time. And in the case of cordyceps, a spore lands on the exoskeleton of an insect, and it's more often than not, it's an ant. And so the fungus
So basically, mushrooms are evil, is what you're saying.
No, I don't think they're evil. It's just that's how they've evolved. It's their way of surviving.
So a mushroom survives by releasing these zombie spores into the air, and then the zombie spore infects the ants, and then the ants turn into a zombie for the mushroom, and the mushroom grows out of the ant.
Kind of like, in a way. I'll explain it in like more scientific terms, but yeah, like that's a TLDR.
So now we have to be afraid of mushrooms. Okay, good.
So, okay, so basically, when the spore lands on the ant, the fungus penetrates through the ant's outer body covering. And this is because insects and ants don't have skin like we do. So they have the exoskeleton, which is essentially this hard exterior structure made primarily of a material called chitin. And chitin is actually the same material that is found in like crabs and lobster shells and like other arthropods. And somehow, over millions of years of evolution, cordyceps also evolved the ability to chemically break through this protective barrier. So those kind of evolved together. So over millions of years, cordyceps also evolved with the ability to break down this chitin material. And so once the fungus gets inside, it begins to spread through the ant's body using these microscopic thread-like structures called hyphae. And then you can almost think of these as like the fungus's version of roots or branches kind of spreading out through the ant. And then over time, this network spreads throughout the insect's entire body and interacts with its muscles, its tissues, its nervous system. And it's actually like kind of creepy.
Back when I was still a politician, there was actually a giant mushroom farm in the district that I represented. And I visited that mushroom farm several times. And, I would literally walk through like all like rows and rows of like mushrooms being grown and things like that. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I may very well have like dodged the zombie apocalypse because I was literally in like a
Oh my
like
God.
one of the biggest like internal mushroom factories in the world. By the way, the mushrooms are delicious, right? Like
Oh,
the
you ate
mushrooms
them?
are, oh yeah, like the mushrooms are so good, right? Like they
Ooh.
grow so many different types of mushrooms, and like the mushrooms are delicious, but
Wait, wait,
like
wait. How do I know this isn't the mushroom talking right now?
you don't. You don't. I could very well be who knows? Maybe when I went to that mushroom factory, I was infected and now I'm cordyceps Goldie. Who knows? But there was like so many different kind of mushrooms and the mushrooms were really delicious, but it's just scary how like, you know, all the mushrooms were edible. The mushrooms were edible. I ate them all. But I don't know, man. Like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like did I like dodge a bullet or something?
Oh my goodness.
Because I literally lived like 5-10 minutes away from that giant mushroom farm,
Wild.
and the mushrooms were delicious. I would like buy mushrooms every week.
That's wild. So let me jump to, because we're on step 3 now, which is the fungus spreads through the body. I'm going to jump to the ant cross section graph for a second. This one's so creepy, but so essentially the cordyceps is using all of these branches to spread through the body of the ant. But one thing that we have to realize is that scientists don't think that the fungus is literally driving the ant's brain like someone is driving a car. Instead, what current evidence is suggesting is that the fungus is probably producing these various compounds and different biochemical signals that alter the ant's normal behavior. So it's not necessarily controlling every movement. It's more like changing the rules that the ant's body and brain are operating under. And so this causes the ant to leave its colony and it begins climbing. And so this is when it climbs up that tree. But if we take a look at this diagram here, you'll kind of see that it's like really taken over its whole body. And so the exoskeleton here is that harder shell that it breaks through. And this is the hyphae. And you can see like all of the filaments, and like this poor ant has no chance. He's kind of done for. The cordyceps have really taken over his whole body. And so now we're at stage 4. And this is where the ant leaves its colony and it begins climbing the tree. And it's not climbing.
Can you explain again? So, what causes the ant to change its behavior? It's because the fungus inside of it is getting to the brain?
No, I think like originally scientists thought that it was because it was getting to the brain, and like people thought that it was like driving its brain, but that's not what current evidence is suggesting. And it might be more likely that the fungus is producing different compounds and biochemical signals that are altering how the brain functions. So because of some of the chemical compounds that are being developed inside of the brain, inside of the ant's body, this is what can alter the behavior. So it's not like it's like driving behind a wheel, but it's more like it's developing these chemicals and different compounds that are affecting that behavior.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, because that's kind of like how, like for us humans, like different chemicals that are produced in your body will impact you in different ways, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah. And like for everyone, I think who's watching, like I think Rose, like a very easy example is for for example, like alcohol, right? When those alcohol chemicals enter your body, it makes you react in a different way. Or for example, if you do drugs or something like that, right? Like any sort of foreign chemical will have some sort of reaction on your body. So
Exactly.
so that's what you're saying, is that when this cordyceps infects the ant, it releases these chemicals or whatever, and then it's those chemicals that result in the behavioral change within that ant.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Absolutely. And then so once the ant leaves its colony and goes to this very specific height on a tree or some sort of vegetation, at a very specific temperature and humidity conditions, specific for ideal conditions for the fungus. So this is the part that's fascinating to me, because it essentially means that over millions of years, natural selection essentially fine-tuned the relationship between this specific fungus to understand the exact location that maximizes its chance for reproducing. So this is what causes that change of behavior for the ant, for it to climb up to this specific location based on what is the ideal location for the fungus to reproduce.
Survival instincts.
Yeah.
Evolution based on survival instincts. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is the change of behavior part, and then you get the climbing of the vegetation, and then you get to the death grip. So this is like right before it dies. So this is when the fungus causes the ant to clamp its jaws into that specific vegetation. And then once the ant locks itself into place, it eventually dies. But from the fungus perspective, this is just the beginning of its life. So the fungus is thriving at this point. So he's all excited, like, yes, I'm, new beginnings for me. So because after the ant dies, this is when the fungus continues to grow. So it consumes all of the remaining tissue in the ant and it develops a fruiting body, which is basically what we see in those like fun time lapses with like all the fungus growing out. And eventually, like the structure that of what's growing inside of the ant's body erupts from the ant and releases this new generation of spores into the environment. So you have the fruiting body here, and then once it's up and thriving, the spores are released, and the entire process and cycle starts all over again. And so this process actually evolved through random mutations and natural selection over millions and millions of years, which is really interesting because, like, evolution somehow discovered a strategy that looks kind of like mind control in a way, even though it's like this fungus that's controlling the ant. It's a very interesting way to think about mind control and how it could work in insects. So this is how Cordyceps works. We're going to go back to our previous diagram. So this is our behavioral manipulation diagram. So this was the Cordyceps fungus. The next one is toxoplasma. So this is another interesting zombie-like thing that we see in nature, because it's also another external factor that can also make some of these like natural zombies. And remember, guys, like when we talk about zombies, scientifically, we're talking about an external force or an external agent that is impacting the behavior and will of a specific organism.
Rose, I have to take a quick break because I have to go eat my dinner, but I'll be watching. But before you go, can we have a quick commercial break because I saw this one comment and I want to respond to the comment.
Sure.
Okay, so someone commented. So Olson Adam commented. Badger, 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 mushroom, mushroom, snakes. Oh my God, snakes. And I just wanted to say, in response to Olson Adam, now some of you might be too old for this, but I couldn't help myself.
Too young.
Or too young. Or too young. But yeah, this is what Olson is referring to. There you go. Guys, that's like one of the original like OG memes from like, 25, 30 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. If you're an elder millennial like me, you remember the badger meme. But anyways, Olson commented the badger, 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 and I just had to hear that. But yeah, there you go. There's a, you know what? I was actually, what's interesting is that when Olson mentioned that, I was also thinking about the badger meme because it's all like mushrooms and snakes and whatever. So, anyways, there you go. So now a new fear of mushrooms has been unlocked for me. But there you go. Having said that, I will be here. I'll be in the background. I have to eat a little bit of dinner. I mean, I'll try to eat dinner anyway if I can. But
are you having mushrooms?
No, thank God, no. No, I did not. I specifically did not order more. I'm having a salad, but no mushrooms.
Okay. I personally love mushrooms. I love portobello mushrooms. I love truffle.
Oh, mushrooms are delicious. I love mushrooms.
Yeah. Okay. Well, enjoy your dinner. And
but I will be in the chat following along, everyone. So there you go.
Okay. Okay, so next, guys, I want to talk about toxoplasma, which is one of the other external factors that can also make these natural zombies. And so this could be, a lot of you might have heard of toxoplasma. It's essentially a parasite, and like all good parasites, it has a very specific life goal, which is to wanting to reproduce inside of a specific organism. And in this case, it's a cat. So toxoplasma loves cats. They want to live inside cats. And to toxoplasma, cats are what biologists call a definitive host, meaning that's where the parasite's life cycle ultimately needs to end up, because that's the like primary location that this parasite can reproduce and then shed its infectious eggs within the feces of the cat. So this specific parasite needs a cat to live, survive, reproduce, etc. And so the way that toxoplasma gets itself inside a cat is by first finding itself inside of a mouse or a rat. And so this is what allows it to hopefully make its way to the cat through these rodents. And so researchers actually discovered that rodents that are infected with toxoplasma lose much of their natural fear, and specifically their fear response to cats, which is actually completely against survival of the fittest, because the fear of a predator is one of the most fundamental survival instincts that an animal can have. And so the fact that this parasite is causing this rodent to completely lose its fear of cats is essentially a change of behavior for this particular animal. And this actually reminded me of that cult that Goldie was talking about, because it's essentially people losing their will to live in a way, which I find is very interesting. But essentially, it's these rodents don't really care about these cats because they've lost that fear due to this parasite. And so somehow this particular parasite evolved the ability to interfere with that specific fear instinct. And in some experiments that were performed, infected rodents even appeared to become attracted to the smell of cat urine. And that was what was attracting them. And they were able to find cats and get closer to cats because they were really attracted to that specific smell. And so that would cause the cat to find the mouse, eat it, and then once the cat would eat the mouse, the parasite would successfully complete its life cycle because it would be infecting the cat at that point. So again, we're seeing an example of an organism altering another organism's behavior for its own reproductive advantage. And then this is also very similar to the definition of zombie we were talking about. And then next up, we have rabies. So the rabies virus. And so actually compared to the other two, if we're talking about the closest things that humans have right now to a zombie disease, I think rabies would actually be on top of that list when we compare it to something like cordyceps or toxoplasma, because unlike those two, rabies can actually infect humans. And so rabies is a virus that attacks the nervous system and ultimately the brain. And one of the most fascinating things about rabies is that from an evolutionary perspective, the symptoms of the disease is what helps spread the virus itself. So one of the things that makes rabies so unusual is that it doesn't spread through the bloodstream like many other viruses do. Instead, rabies essentially hijacks your nervous system's own wiring and then causes you to become aggressive. So in an animal, for instance, it normally enters the body through a bite from an infected animal, and then the virus initially replicates in the muscle tissue near the bite. So it's very localized to start with. And then it enters nearby nerve cells and essentially starts to travel along the nerves themselves. And then that's when it starts to slowly make its way through the spinal cord and then to the brain eventually. And then this is one of the reasons why rabies can be so deceptive, because depending on where you're bitten, the symptoms might not appear for a while. So let's say you're bitten on your ankle, it could take like weeks or months for any sort of symptoms to happen if obviously it's left untreated. But if you're bitten on like the neck or your face, the symptoms could appear a lot more quick, because it's essentially the time that it takes for the infected tissue to kind of get to your spinal cord and then travel along the nerves and get to your brain. So I'm going to share another quick diagram. So this is the brain on rabies. And so once rabies reaches the brain, this is when things become extremely serious. So I will say, guys, rabies is extremely treatable, and we have vaccines for this up until it reaches your brain. So like it is something that we have a cure for, but if left untreated, then you're SOL. But essentially, the virus causes inflammation throughout your brain. And then some of the regions that it affects are very interesting because they're quite zombie-like. So there's first the amygdala, which is this orange section over here. So this plays a major role in fear, emotional responses, and aggression. So this can get disrupted. And so other areas involved also include judgment, different kinds of behavior, and then different functions within your body can be affected, which can cause dramatic changes in behavior. And so I have some symptoms of rabies listed here. But some of the most common symptoms include extreme agitation, so a lot of restlessness, inability to relax, confusion, disorientation, some memory problems. You have a lot of paranoia, like you're not trusting people, aggression, so unprovoked attacks and violent behavior, hallucinations, and like seeing and hearing things that aren't there. Altered fear responses, so you kind of lose your natural fear of danger. Hydrophobia, so this one's really interesting. It's that you hear it a lot. It's like fear of water. And then you have severe neurological dysfunction as well. So progressive breakdown of your nervous system over time. And so just to be very clear, not every rabies patient becomes aggressive or violent, but many of the behavioral changes caused by rabies appear to increase the likelihood that the virus will spread, because rabies primarily is spread through saliva and bites. And I think out of all the symptoms, the strangest one to me is hydrophobia, which is the fear of water. This is the one you normally hear about sometimes when you hear about rabies. But it doesn't mean that people with rabies are psychologically afraid of water. The problem is actually neurological, because the virus can affect the muscles that are involved in swallowing. And so when a person with advanced rabies attempts to drink water, they can experience severe muscle spasms and intense discomfort. And so eventually, when it gets to that stage, like you don't want to drink water, because it can kind of trigger some of these involuntary responses, which is where this fear of water kind of comes from. But like I said, the scariest part of rabies is that once the symptoms begin, the disease is almost universally fatal. I don't know if there have been many cases of people who have been able to get cured once it hits the brain. And so that's why it's really important. If you get bitten by a wild animal that you think has rabies, first thing you should do is to just wash the area with soap and water. And then you want to get some medical attention. And then that's when vaccines could be administered. these exist, so there is a cure for it. It's just a matter of getting treated before it hits your brain. But going back to our zombie discussion, like obviously rabies isn't um, a version of zombie, but it is an organism whose behavior has been dramatically altered by an external agent. And so when we come back to that definition of what a zombie could be, then rabies as a virus starts to check off a lot of those boxes. So let's go back to our behavioral manipulation. So we covered cordyceps, which is a fungus, toxoplasma, which is a parasite, and rabies, which is a virus. And so next we have chemical manipulation. And this one's quite interesting because this is essentially beyond fungi and viruses and like nature manipulating behavior. And we've kind of moved on to how chemistry can also create zombie-like behavior, because everything that we've talked about so far comes back to our brains. So essentially our thoughts, our personality, our decision making, our emotions, our sense of self, everything that makes a person themselves, everything that makes you you, and everything that makes me as a human ultimately depends on the different electrical signals and chemical reactions that are occurring inside of the brain, which means that if you alter any sort of chemistry inside the brain, you can also alter behavior. And this is actually what Goldie mentioned earlier as well with alcohol. So alcohol can be a chemical that can alter human behavior as well. So one of the most famous chemical examples that is very similar to like mind control and zombies is scopolamine. I think I'm saying that right. Scopolamine. So it's also referred to as devil's breath. So it's essentially a drug that's actively used in medicine for things like motion sickness and nausea, but at higher doses, it can actually produce profound effects on the brain. And specifically, it can block the actions of our different neurotransmitters, which is essentially needed for things like memory and attention and normal cognitive function. And it might be one of the closest things to mind control that we have today. So I'm going to show a quick little video just on this right now for us to see what this chemical drug is all about. Okay. Scopolamine, that's how you say it. Okay, let's go back. Is there no sound, guys, or can you hear the sound? Oh, okay, no audio. Interesting. Maybe my browser lost connection to audio. Let me retry this, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so we got it back up. Take two.
Did you know there's a plant so powerful it can hypnotize people? Scopolamine, nicknamed devil's breath, is derived from plants like Brugmansia and Datura. This chemical affects the brain by blocking key signals, leading to confusion, memory loss, and a trance-like state where people become highly suggestible. In Colombia, it's infamously used by criminals to manipulate victims. Under its effects, people have been known to empty their bank accounts, hand over valuables, or follow dangerous instructions, all while being completely unaware of their actions. Even more frightening, the effects can last for hours. Did you know there's a plant so powerful it can manipulate victims? Under its effects, people have been known to empty their bank accounts, hand over valuables, or follow dangerous instructions, all while being completely unaware of their actions. Even more frightening, the effects can last for hours, and most victims wake up with no memory of what they did. Although scopolamine has safe medical uses, like treating motion sickness, its misuse highlights the dangers of natural toxins. It's a chilling reminder of how nature's power can be both life-saving and dangerous. Did you know there's a plant so...
Okay, guys. So yeah, very, very creepy. And like I know it mentioned that sometimes criminals can use this to actually control people and like empty their bank accounts and make people do things that are quite nefarious and they might not want to do. So very creepy, but something that exists in nature in terms of what can be used to control and manipulate humans. And another example that I want to talk about around how chemicals can actually alter humans is an example that made the news a few years ago. So this received an enormous amount of media attention back in 2012. And some of you might remember the infamous Miami incident reported as a zombie attack. But essentially, the media narrative at the time was there was a drug that turned someone into a zombie, which at the time was obviously an oversimplification. But this was related to a bath salts incident that someone, oh yeah, Aggie, you got it. So yeah, so there was an incident in 2012 where there was like this infamous attack where someone attacked another person. And essentially, I don't want to get too much into the gory details, but they attacked someone else very viciously. They ended up, like the other person, the victim didn't end up making it. It was very gory and very unfortunate. But first of all, bath salts in this context does not refer to the kind of bath salts that you put in your bathtub. It was essentially a nickname given to a class of synthetic stimulant drugs known as synthetic cathinines. And then these drugs are chemically related to compounds that we actually find in a plant called the cot plant, which has different stimulant properties. And what makes this plant fascinating from a neuroscience perspective is that it can dramatically alter the chemical signaling of your brain. And so we're going to talk about neurotransmitters a little bit and how bath salts and this cot plant can actually affect your brain activity. Okay, let me share my screen here. So this is share. Okay, so to understand this, we need to briefly talk about what neurotransmitters are. So essentially, neurons in your brain are able to communicate with each other using different chemical messengers. And three of the most important neurotransmitters involved here are dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And so dopamine essentially is involved in that reward and motivation factor. And it's basically your brain's way of deciding what's important. And then norepinephrine is involved in when it comes to things like arousal and stress responses and your fight or flight response. And then serotonin helps with mood regulation and cognition and different brain functions. as it pertains to supporting like emotional balance and clear thinking and overall mental well-being. And so under normal circumstances, these symptoms are very, very tightly regulated. But certain stimulant drugs can essentially flood these systems with these neurotransmitters, which can affect what's happening in your brain in a very, very significant and drastic way. So it can cause your brain to malfunction in very, very dramatic ways. So people start experiencing things like paranoia and hallucinations, severe anxiety, loss of judgment, delusion, and in some cases, very, very violent behavior, which is the case that we saw in Miami. And so their brains are simply no longer processing reality normally. And so this also demonstrates just how dependent our sense of reality is on brain chemistry functioning properly. So our personalities are the things that make us who we are, and our ability to make rational decisions and interpret the world around you correctly is all dependent on this delicate balance of electrical and chemical signaling. And if that balance becomes disrupted in any sort of severe way, for instance, with use of something like these synthetic cathinines like basalt, that behavior can change dramatically as well, because your neurotransmitters that are controlling all of these key factors in your behavior are no longer functioning properly. So this is what people originally thought happened with that Miami incident. But what's actually interesting is that toxicology reports later actually showed that that person did not have any sort of bath salts in their system. They actually didn't have very many drugs at all. I think the only drug that they found was marijuana, which means that this famous like zombie drug bath salts incident was largely a media creation. And so when we think of, like, why did this person do what they did and essentially, violently attack this unsuspecting victim, maybe it was some sort of undetected synthetic drug that we don't have the ability to test for right now. Or it could have been like a severe psychiatric episode, or maybe a combination of some other factors as well. But yeah, it wasn't actually bath salts at the time. But all of that to say, there is a broader scientific lesson here, which remains true. And it's that chemistry itself can have this profound effect on human behavior and change the way humans behave. And, it can start some of these conversations around whether someone is a zombie. And so the next thing that I want to dive into is whether humans themselves have ever created something that resembles a zombie. And the answer is yes. So scientists have successfully created different kinds of remotely controlled animals. For example, scientists have actually implanted tiny electrodes in the nervous system of various animals, including cockroaches and rats and insects. So this is where we get into our last category, guys. So yeah, different like insects and even sharks sometimes. And so by stimulating specific parts of the nervous system, researchers can actually influence that animal's movement. So for example, there's actually something called like a cyborg cockroach, which scientists have created, and they can actually steer these cockroaches left or right using different electrical stimulation. And so essentially, scientists have also used that same electrical stimulation in rats as well to influence their navigation and movement. But one thing to be conscious about is that they're not actually taking over the animal's consciousness. Instead, they're influencing their behavior by manipulating their movements. So essentially, your brain itself is an electrochemical machine, and every thought that you've ever had, every memory you formed, every decision that we make ultimately is the result of billions of these neurons in your brain communicating through different electrical and chemical signals, which means that if we somehow have the ability to interact and influence those signals, we can potentially influence behavior and change behavior in a matter of our liking if we're able to manipulate that. And so I want to talk about a very interesting experiment that the Soviet Union did in the early 1900s. And some of you may have heard about it, but it's called the Soviet dog experiment. And so there was a Soviet scientist named Sergei Bukhanenko who developed this experimental machine designed to circulate oxygenated blood outside of the body. And so to demonstrate this machine, he actually conducted experiments in which severed dog heads were maintained for short periods of time with artificial circulation after the dog had died. And so the reports indicate that the heads actually did respond to this stimuli. So I have a short documentary video from the 1940s about this experiment. So this goes over the Soviet experiment. It's very old, guys. It's from the 1940s.
I should like to tell you that I have seen some of the experiments shown in this film actually carried out at the All-Russian Physiological Congress. As you can imagine, technique is everything. Long ago, science established the fact that animal organs and tissues isolated from the whole organism can be maintained in a living state. But in order to achieve this, special artificial conditions must be created. Isolated organs can be brought to life even though they've been removed from the animal's corpse some time after death. Here's a dog's heart. It can function as well in artificial conditions as in a living organism. And for this purpose...
Okay, so yeah, that's a dog heart, and obviously it's very weird, and like ethics at this time were quite strange, and not much regulation happening at this point of time, especially in the Soviet Union. But I think what is interesting is that like even this on screen and some of the things that we're watching is some of the foundational work that eventually led to things like modern organ transplantation and open heart surgeries and like different life support machines in intensive care medicine. So even though this is kind of a strange experiment, it did lead to some key scientific findings and transformations over time. What was even interesting is that like they're introducing the idea that an organ doesn't magically stop being alive the moment it's removed from the body. And so individual cells themselves can continue to function if you continue supplying them with the things that they need to survive, which is essentially oxygen, the right amount of nutrients, temperature control, and a way to remove waste. And so this also kind of starts to venture into like some philosophy where it, like you kind of start thinking, what does death even mean? And when does the death process actually start? At what point, is it like when it's removed from your body? It's a question. So biologically speaking, death isn't necessarily an instantaneous event. It's often a process that's happening.
Blood is introduced into the cardiac vessels. The isolated heart beats just as it did a few hours previously in the living dog. The following experiment is conducted on lungs taken from an animal.
That's a lung.
Bellows distend the lungs and fill them with air. The venous blood is forced into the lungs by the action of the pump. The dark venous blood passes through this tube. In the lungs, it takes up oxygen and becomes arterial blood.
So what's interesting here, guys, is that the machines keeping patients alive today during procedures like open heart surgery is performing many of the same functions that we're seeing demonstrated in some of these early experiments. So this is all like very, very foundational work for a lot of today's operational procedures when it comes to medicine.
The isolated lungs breathe, producing the same chemical changes as in the living animal. An animal's head can also live in the isolated condition. Here is the plan of the experiment. The arterial pump takes arterial blood from the reservoir to the head, while the venous pump drains off the venous blood. The blood is arterialized in the reservoir, where there is a steady flow of oxygen.
Okay, so maybe just a quick disclaimer for everyone. What we are about to see after this is real. So they do take a dog head and perform what you see graphically here, but with a real dog head. So in case you don't want to see it, that's fine, just disclaimer, but it was a real experiment that they did perform back in the time.
The artificial blood circulation ensures the metabolism necessary for the life of the head. The isolated head lives on for hours and reacts to external stimuli. The isolated head even reacts to light and to sound.
So I just want to make a point about what we're seeing here. So what we're seeing in terms of the response of this dog head is not evidence of a conscious animal that's trapped inside of a severed head. What scientists actually believe is happening is that some of the basic neural circuits within the brain remained functional because the brain was still receiving this oxygenated blood that they had flowing through the head, which honestly even just raises like some really deep questions around neuroscience. Is like, what is it that separates life from death, and like some very profound philosophical questions. But it's one of the first steps towards understanding the science of zombies, because one of the recurring themes that we keep seeing is that different parts of the nervous system can actually remain active even when others have stopped functioning. So
the revival of individual organs enabled scientists to proceed to experiment on reviving the whole organism. The revival of the whole organism can be achieved with the help of an apparatus called the autojector. The autojector carries out the functions of the heart and lungs. We begin the experiment of revival. The experiment is carried out on a dog. A substance which prevents clotting is introduced into the animal's blood. The dog is under an anesthetic. It doesn't feel pain. No interruption of the animal's normal functions has yet occurred. The dog reacts to touch. Its pupils are normal. A special apparatus, the chymograph, registers the breathing and the function of the dog's heart. The pulse and breathing are normal. The experiment begins. All the blood is drained off through the carotid artery. The heart has stopped. This is one of the animal's last gasps. This is a final breath. The dog is dead.
So scientifically, the dog is declared dead at this point.
Without operative interference, death would be final, as the disintegration of the body cells would gradually set in. The autojector is being attached before starting the revival. The arterial pump is connected with the artery. The venous pump is connected with the vein. Ten minutes have elapsed since the animal died. The blood removed from the animal is pumped back into its vessels by the autojector. The artificial blood circulation gradually
Why is the dog
induces
back?
the heart to start beating again. The heart's action begins to be normal.
So there's a heartbeat.
The first sign. The respiration is gradually restored. We can now disconnect the autojector and leave the organism of the dog to maintain life with its own resources.
So the dog completely recovers.
The dog is still weak and can't move.
I love the old school, like happy music here. Gabriel is saying, I don't think the mind of the dog is still there. And, that's actually an interesting point, and they don't really go in it in this documentary. And honestly, like, given the timeline of this documentary and with it having come out in the 40s, I do also wonder how much of it could be propaganda as well. So just interesting to keep that in mind. But I mean, the dog that they're showing on screen seems to be fine. Whether or not it's the same dog that they started the experiment with is to be determined.
After 10 to 12 days, the dog returns to its normal state.
It is a very cute dog, though, I will say. Okay, so that's our Soviet dog experiment, which I can understand was can be quite unsettling for sure. But it's oh, hi, Goldie. What did you think of that?
Oh, I hate it. I hate experiments on animals, especially dogs. Yeah. I was watching behind the scenes, and yeah, I don't like that.
What
like
really?
I literally cry. I still cry about that that dog that was sent to space by the Russians, and then like it just died up in space. So I just find that horrifying, because dogs are just such pure creatures. So I'm against all like animal experimentation. Like that's just
Yeah. We should do it on humans instead, right?
We should do it on Durkas. Like you want to do human experimentations on like the IRGC supporters? Like I support that, no problem. But
you know what? This is where things like clinical trials comes in, right? Like some people could get paid a lot of money to undergo these experiments, and the riskier the experiments are, the more money you can get. So, let's experiment on humans. Why not?
If but you know what it is though? It's like human experimentation, the humans have a choice, right? So humans can choose whether to
most of the time
on. Dogs don't have that choice. Animals don't have that choice, right? So it's like the same thing with like makeup and stuff, right? Like makeup products, I only buy like makeup products that like are not tested on animals, because I just
good. Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's really important to me.
Same. But what's very interesting about the video that we just watched, Goldie, and overall that Soviet experiment is that it kind of starts to blur the line between life and death, because like the dog was like dead for a little bit of time, and then it kind of came back. So I think it goes back to the like thinking about the moment. At what point does a living organism stop being alive? Which is definitely like it can also be like a philosophical question itself, but that's kind of where some of this is also venturing into. But there's another experiment more recent that I want to talk about as well. So this was an experiment from 2019. And after the Soviets kind of did all of their like funny business, scientists were continuing to ask the same fundamental question around like what exactly happens when we die. Is it like a single moment? Is it like a process that unfolds over time? And the general understanding was that after circulation stops, the brain cells rapidly die due to a lack of oxygen. And so while that's certainly true to a certain extent, there were researchers at Yale University who decided to ask a very interesting question, which is what if some brain cells survive longer than we originally thought? And so in 2019, they conducted an experiment where they obtained pig brains from a slaughterhouse. So these pigs were already dead. They were not killed for the experiment, but their brains were taken from a slaughterhouse. And if you ask most people this question, including many scientists a few years ago, whether brain cells could survive like for hours without circulation, the answer would probably have been no. But then after this experiment, the answer was a little bit different. So I'm going to put on this next video real quick, and we'll see what the folks at Yale were doing. So this video is called Researchers Restore Partial Function to the Brains of Dead Pigs.
How do you know when you're dead? Is it when your heart stops beating, or is it when your brain is no longer performing any functions? Regardless of how you define death, most people agree that once you're dead, you're gone and there is no coming back to life. At least, this has been the case up to this point. In a recent experiment, scientists were able to revive the brains of pigs who had been slaughtered just 4 hours beforehand, at least to some degree. The scientists make it clear that the pigs' brains were not actually brought back to life. Instead, some cellular activities within the brains were restored. Of course, there is a lot of room for confusion, so let's take a look at the details of the study and see what this could mean for the medical science of the future. Scientists at Yale performed an experiment on a collection of 32 pig brains which were obtained from the United States Department of Agriculture. The pigs were slaughtered, and after 4 hours, their brains were introduced to a new experimental system the researchers called BrainX. BrainX is an incredibly interesting system. Essentially, it is a method of connecting the vascular system of the brain to a solution researchers created to preserve brain tissue. This solution effectively acts as a substitute for blood. The brain needs oxygen to function. Going too long without oxygen leads to a loss of consciousness, a loss of functions, and ultimately death.
So what's interesting about doing this on pig brains is that pig brains are actually a very good model to replicate a human brain because they're quite large, like a human brain, and they're also highly folded, similar to humans. So they have a lot of similarity to what a human brain could actually look like. So they can be a very good model for human brain.
Blood supplies the brain with the needed oxygen, so if there is no heart to pump the blood, it doesn't take a scientist to find out that there are going to be some serious complications. So, through the use of BrainX, researchers were able to use this oxygen-carrying solution to keep the dead brain oxygenated. The pig brains never showed signs of electrical activity. The researchers emphasized that these brains were absolutely dead and did not show any signs of life or consciousness. Rather, they observed a reduced number of cell deaths, the preservation of some anatomical structures, and even noticed some sporadic neural activities. Just because the brains didn't exhibit signs of consciousness doesn't mean the researchers weren't prepared for that outcome. However, their plan wasn't as exciting as you might think. Instead of encouraging and nurturing this revival of consciousness, the team was prepared to intervene with anesthesia in order to stop organized electrical activities. As amazing as it would be to bring something back to life hours after it was dead, there are undeniably some serious ethical dilemmas we would need to sort out before we try to dabble with doing such a thing. These results do bring up a few important realizations and questions. First, we know that the way we've defined a dead brain has been wrong. Before, it was believed that once blood flow to the brain stopped, cellular function stopped nearly immediately after, and the brain suffered irreversible damage. Now, we know that some functions can be restored, even long after the brain was declared dead. This not only brings up some exciting possibilities for medical science, it also brings up some important philosophical questions.
Sorry, Goldie, but you've heard about this before, right? Brains, you've heard people talk about after your brain has been without oxygen for quite some time, you've essentially suffered irreversible damage and you kind of can't get back to normal.
Mhm.
But some of these experiments are kind of suggesting that like maybe some brain cells may remain viable for much longer than we thought. And it doesn't necessarily mean that like we're able to resurrect humans or like other beings who have been dead for some time, but it does suggest that something could be possible, and there's a larger window for different medical interventions, even when it comes to things like strokes or cardiac arrest or like traumatic brain injuries, because we're understanding more about how the brain is functioning and that some of these could actually be possible. Obviously, a lot more research needs to go into figuring that out, but it's kind of going against the belief that we've had for a long time around how like you're done if you don't have oxygen to your brain.
I've actually heard that, like, the brain, because, like, and I'm going to get into a little bit philosophical aspect of it, but it's like they say that your consciousness can exist for up to like 20 minutes or longer, potentially, even after like your so 20 minutes after your oxygen stops going to your brain. And even though like your motor functions might have stopped, so like your heart stops pumping and all that stuff, your consciousness is still there. So that's a really interesting question, I guess, for science, which is like, if science is able to revive the brain, are they reviving the motor functions, or are they bringing back the consciousness? Like, what exactly is that consciousness, right? Because we still don't have an answer for what constitutes consciousness within the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. What even is consciousness? But
Yeah, well, I mean,
again,
that's a very good question.
yeah, yeah, it's getting quite philosophical, but very interesting questions.
Yeah.
And like, I love philosophy, and I love dabbling into some of these questions. And Goldie, I actually think we spoke a little bit about like consciousness and like what that means in our first live stream that we ever did around like, is reality a simulation?
Yeah.
And when we kind of asked some of those questions, but definitely a very interesting topic.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, so the whole concept of like, like a person dying and their consciousness leaving the body, but then the motor skills coming back, but the consciousness isn't there. That's pretty much the premise of The Walking Dead, where it's like
Yeah.
they die, the consciousness leaves the body, and there's like they do this brain scan and the brain turns all weird. But then like you see the electrical impulses come in, but the consciousness is gone and it's just like a zombie at that point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting to think about, especially putting it that way, and like something dying, but then something else coming in, taking over its body as a vessel. But like, what made that person them, which was like the chemical compounds in their brain, making them like defining their personality, their view on life, their perceptions, all of that is gone now. And it's something else, just using the body as some sort of vessel to control.
Mm-hmm.
What is death? How do we define what death is, and how do we identify when it officially occurs? More abstractly, if you die and are brought back several hours later, did you lose anything that made you you? These are questions that will need much more time and research to answer.
Okay, so we've covered all of the different behavioral manipulation topics now. So we started with Cordyceps fungus, we went to toxoplasma, we have virus, we have chemicals, and we have electricity, essentially. So these are the different ways of behavioral manipulation, which can be a way to define what makes a zombie. But Goldie, the real question for tonight was, could a real zombie outbreak actually happen? And honestly, I think that answer depends entirely on what you mean by the word zombie. Because if zombie is, that Hollywood style undead person who dies, comes back to life, and then starts like eating people's brains. Probably not right now, because we actually don't have any sort of current scientific evidence that anything like that is possible. But if by zombie we mean an organism whose behavior has been dramatically altered by some sort of external influence, whether that's a fungus, a parasite, a virus, a chemical, or any sort of electrical simulation through technology, then we've actually spent the last 2 hours proving that this happens all the time. So, yeah, like zombie outbreaks in this context, definitely scientifically possible and is happening. But let's go back to cordyceps specifically, because this was the one that we wanted to focus on to see if cordyceps can happen in humans. And fortunately for all of us, the answer is almost certainly no.
Not okay. No. You didn't say 100%. This is like the politician in me. You didn't say 100% no. You said almost, possibly, certainly no. The almost means that there is a chance.
There's a chance. And yes, I didn't say it's impossible, because it actually, in science, generally, saying something is impossible is not something that you typically do, because there's always a chance for something to happen. But there's a very good possibility that cordyceps won't evolve into, the way it infects arthropods to affecting humans. And I'm going to go over some of these specific reasons why, but there are some very good reasons around why this likely won't happen.
Likely won't happen. Okay.
Okay, so the first reason is temperature. So most cordyceps species have evolved over millions of years to infect insects, which are cold-blooded organisms. And insects don't maintain a constant internal body temperature the way that mammals do. And humans, on the other hand, we spend our entire lives walking around with this internal body temperature of 37 Celsius, which is 98 Fahrenheit, which is not a good environment for cordyceps. So, as it turns out, us walking around are like, we're like these big furnaces when it comes to cordyceps. They don't like that environment. And it's one of our best defenses right now against fungal infections and cordyceps in particular. So a huge number of fungus simply cannot survive or reproduce effectively at a human's body temperature. And so this is one of our biggest defense mechanisms right now. And actually, some scientists have argued that one of the reasons that mammals became so successful after the extinction of dinosaurs is that being warm-blooded actually gave us this built-in defense against many, many pathogens, which required colder environments, which means that one of the reasons that you're not currently a zombie fungus host is that, you're too hot, Goldie. So temperature is the big one.
You should make like a mug. You should make a mug or a t-shirt that says like "too hot to be a zombie."
too hot to be a zombie host, but it's not impossible. So there are some fungus that like can infect humans, but cordyceps specifically we're too hot for.
We're too hot for cordyceps. I love that. That should be like a mug or a hat or a t-shirt or something.
Too hot for cordyceps.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Hot people unite against cordyceps.
I love that. You're so good at coming up with merch terminology.
It's just so funny. It's like a meme, right? There you go. Look, Omid said it best. Too hot to be a zombie. There you go. And then anyone who knows the science knows exactly what that's referring to, right? That's a perfect one. Too hot to be a zombie.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. Great one. Okay, so the next defense mechanism we have is our incredible immune system. So we have a very, very good, sophisticated immune system. And so cordyceps specifically evolved to infect insects. And so obviously, insects have immune systems, but they're fundamentally different from the immune systems that humans have. Humans have like layers and layers of specialized cells whose entire job is to identify and destroy different invading pathogens. And so, even if a cordyceps spore somehow managed to survive in our body temperature, it would like the next thing it would have to overcome is our immune system, which probably isn't going to happen. So, let's say somehow like you're, a really cold person and, you got infected with this cordyceps spore, your immune system would be the next thing that would kill it off. So it wouldn't work out for it. And then the final thing keeping us safe is evolution itself. So again, like cordyceps as a fungus didn't just like wake up one morning and decide like I want to infect and control ants. That relationship like was very symbiotic and evolved over millions of years of this co-evolution between this very specific organism and host. And so this is often a fact that gets lost in like science fiction and movies and TV shows because like, you can see that like the strand can like jump from one species and like go to another. In the case of cordyceps, that's not true. I'm not saying it's not true for other things, but for cordyceps, likely not happening because that specific process took like millions of years to actually happen. And like from the perspective of cordyceps, like humans are alien, like they would have no idea what to do with their bodies. And like, this isn't something that scientists typically worry about. And so all this to say, I don't want to give the impression that like fungus aren't something that science takes seriously, because there are some fungi that can infect humans. And so there are also some fungi that can kill humans. And, there are fungal disease and like researchers and like there is research going into this. And some of the more serious ones, like you can see up here, cordyceps is like threat level 1, like, we're not too worried about this, but there can be some other ones. So there's something called Aspergillus and Cryptococcus, which can cause some like quite severe diseases, particularly in people with immune systems. Again, this isn't like a zombie.
Oh,
like,
that's meningitis. Cryptococcosis is the leading killer fungus that causes meningitis.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are some of the more serious fungal infections.
Then you can also get like, athlete's foot, which is like fungus in your nails.
Yeah. Not as life-threatening, but
yeah, athlete's foot isn't life-threatening, but it's not a good thing to have.
Right. Athlete's foot, is that from Cryptococcus or is that from
I don't know if it's Cryptococcus. I just know it's like a fungus thing. It's like a fungus like thing for humans.
Yeah. Yeah. So like again, there definitely are fungus that could affect humans, but again, like the question we had posed is, could it make us zombies? The answer is no, but there are some of these other like diseases that you can get from fungus. With Cryptococcus being the most concerning one because it can cause meningitis, as you mentioned, which is like even in healthy humans, it's very dangerous and it could be life-threatening. So it's not necessarily just humans with weakened immune systems. So while some fungi pose real threats, Cordyceps scoldii is not one of them. That is our conclusion for tonight.
but it's still possible. You're in. So the conclusion is that Cordyceps can never not cause a zombie apocalypse. The answer is that it's not likely, but there's a possibility.
Yeah, there is a possibility. Very, very unlikely, but possible. Let's go with that.
Unlocked. New fear unlocked. Zombie apocalypse.
Okay, so that was all that I had for tonight, Goldie. I hope you learned some new fun stuff. Should we get to the super chats?
I love how you say, I hope you learned some new fun stuff about how, this week on how you can die. I hope you learned some new fun stuff about cordyceps and mushrooms. Yes, I learned a lot of new fun stuff depending on your definition of fun. But yeah, let's get to the super chats because you have a lot of questions and comments. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! You kicked me out. There you go. There we go. I fixed it for you. There you go.
Thank you.
But yeah, like I don't know if how I feel about everything, but there are a lot of questions and comments, so let's get to them.
I'm sure you had a little bit of fun, Goldie. Like,
of course it's fun. Listen, I have to admit, like I'm a little bit of a masochist. It's like I enjoy coming here and every week, literally every Sunday evening, this is like my thing now. Every Sunday evening I come here and I like to learn about, the new way that science can kill me, right? Like forget all the Durkish stuff that I talk about on my own channels, but now I come here and I'm like, how can I learn about the next way to die through science, right?
I mean, Goldie, don't forget, you specifically requested this topic.
I did.
Yeah. So how do you want to learn about how humans are in threat next week? Like,
you know what? Why don't you ask the chat? Put a poll. Be like, what do you guys want? Okay, guys, what should we learn about, next week on?
It doesn't have to be morbid. It doesn't have to be morbid.
No, it doesn't have to be morbid. There's a lot of cool topics out there, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, I do have I have been collecting a lot of suggestions, and so I do have quite a long list, but always happy to hear more. And like if someone pops something in the chat that catches someone's eye and Goldie says, Rose, I have an idea, or I have a favor, or I have a request, let's do this next week, you'll probably get bumped up the list. But you're muted.
And I was gonna say, like, obviously, like I'm sure you're gonna put some like members only posts.
Yes.
Asking, your channel members what they want to learn about as well, right? So you're going to do a few polls or whatever, but like I just want to say I really love your shorts. Guys, can I just before we get to the super chats, I just want to do a shout out. Guys, like Rose's shorts are super cool. Like look at this. Rose has been literally like, okay, let me just go back. Let me just go back here for a moment. Like Rose has been literally doing shorts every day and they're super cool. Like, look at this. Like she actually made a video about how the color blue is like the hardest one. And she did this, for was this yesterday? Like
it was my special 4th of July short.
Yeah. So first of all, happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th.
Yeah, who are watching. But look at this super cool one. And she even has like the American flag there. So she's explaining how the color blue is like the hardest to make in fireworks. Can we watch this before we go to super chats?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, wait.
Fireworks is blue. The hardest color to make in fireworks is blue, which sounds ridiculous because humans have been making fireworks for over 1,000 years. But here's the problem. Every firework color comes from a different chemical element. Red usually comes from strontium salts, green comes from barium compounds, orange comes from calcium, and yellow comes from sodium, which is actually so bright that it can sometimes overpower some of the other colors. But blue fireworks usually comes from copper compounds, and copper is incredibly picky. To produce that beautiful, deep blue color, the explosion has to reach a very narrow temperature, roughly between 2000 and 2300 degrees Fahrenheit. If it gets too cold, the copper doesn't emit enough light. But if it gets too hot, the copper compounds literally break apart and the blue disappears. So every time you see a brilliant blue firework on the 4th of July, you're watching chemists pull off a balancing act, which is creating a controlled explosion that's hot enough to shine, but not so hot that it destroys the very color that they're trying to make. Science is wild. I'm Rose GammaRay. Happy 4th of July, and follow for more cool science.
I love that. That's super cool. No, that was really well done. I watched that yesterday and I was like, that is super cool. And then guys, Rose, I can't believe this. Rose also made a video yesterday about why America is still the only country to put humans on the moon. And it only has like 750 views. Guys, I can't believe that. Like it's
That's pretty good for me. Video. That's pretty good for my beginner channel, Goldie, but
I mean, yeah, I know, but like still, like it's guys, if you haven't seen that video, go watch it. Like it's super cool, right? Like it, and I think for any Americans who are watching, it's gonna be very interesting as to like why the United States is the only country to have put humans on the moon. So there you go. But I just wanted to just promote that because I thought that video. Oh my gosh, look at all this! Like people are like, I watched it.
Oh, nice.
I watched it. What did you guys think of it? Wasn't it so cool? It was such a cool video, wasn't it?
Oh, that's so sweet, Goldie.
WMK says, yeah, that was great. Thank you, Rose, for making that one. Yeah.
I definitely I wanted to do something for 4th of July to like commemorate the date. And I was like, what better way than to talk about one of the most amazing achievements in American history. So it was actually really fun to make that video and to watch a lot of the footage from NASA on the moon landing. But then you always get some people in the chat who are like, this was made in a studio or this was staged. So it's always fun to get those comments as well.
Yeah, they're the same ones who are like, the Earth is flat, right? Like Pluto is flat, the sun is flat, the moon is flat, right? But wait, I really like this comment. Blue like my Corvette.
Oh, yeah, that's from the song,
that's
right?
Too. I'm blue, dabba dee ba da, or like that song, right? So we can't play it because we'd be copyright striked, but there you go. Anyways, let's get to all your amazing super chats because you have a lot of questions.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for the promo, Goldie, and thanks for everyone who's been commenting and liking the videos. I really appreciate all of you, and you guys have just made it so much fun to want to continue going and make shorts and videos, and I'm so excited to continue and do more. The first start
not a super chat, but I started because I thought it was hilarious.
So Daniel says, I used to be an anthropod, but then I molted. So that's a funny comment. So
a butterfly or something.
Is that what happens when you molt? I know like spiders molt. And I need to brush up on my insect biology, guys. Okay, so next super chat we have Billy who says Cordyceps made me donate. Oh, I guess thank you, Cordyceps.
Oh no,
for the super chat, Billy. Maybe blink twice if you need some help. We'll see what we can do. Next up, we have All for Aria with a super chat that says, just want to contribute. Rose, Goldie, and chat, hello. Hi, thank you so much for the super chat. Thanks for contributing, and thanks for being here. Next up, we have Daniel Benjamin, who says, fungi is so amazing. I heard one can eat plastic. Ooh, that's so interesting. Let me look into that. That would be very interesting. Okay, so key plastic eating fungi. Okay, let me share my screen real quick.
Oh my God.
Um,
Oh, that's my screen. Wait, so I have to remove my screen, remove, and then add yours.
okay. Okay, so we have certain fungi and their enzymes can break down synthetic plastics into basic molecules, which they consume for carbon and energy. Ooh, you know what? At least we're safe.
You
I'm
know
like,
what, Rose? I actually find that really interesting because, like, synthetic plastics. I mean, my understanding of synthetic plastic is like a material that isn't found naturally. So it's something that like humans create. That's why it's synthetic. So I just find it really interesting that there already exists an organism within, the evolutionary, group
yeah,
of animals that is literally can already break down like synthetic materials.
that's a very interesting point because it's like, how did they evolve to like what were they digesting or eating or breaking down prior to synthetic plastic?
Hmm. I mean, the synthetic plastic breakdown digestion thing could be kind of like a side symptom of their
Mhm.
evolutionary biology or whatever, right? But it's
So,
really
okay,
interesting.
in nature they do it with woody materials. So I guess like the mechanisms that they can do it with like wood can also function with plastics.
Hmm.
Very interesting. Okay, well, thanks for the super chat and the question. I learned something new today, Benjamin. But you know what, Goldie? Like, better plastics than us, right? Like,
Yeah,
we
for
have.
now. For now.
Next, we have Tulsi Rogue Gabbard that says Clarkson Farm taught me mushrooms are space pen is. I think this is a reference to something which I'm not understanding. Goldie, do you get this? Is this a reference to something?
I don't
No?
know. I don't know.
Okay, I feel like you know, but maybe you don't want to say it, but that's fine. That's okay. Tulsi, you know what? Thank you. And I will look into this later and see what it's all about. Okay, next up we have Tony who says, never not learning from the Gamma Ray Report. That's so sweet. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're learning something. I hope everyone's learning something. And I'm certainly learning a lot as well from you guys and your questions. So yeah, it's great to share knowledge. Next, we have Atgi who says, your gut controls you through the microbiota gut brain axis. Bad bacteria want unhealthy food, and good bacteria want you to eat more fiber and nutrients. This is so true. And like, that's why so often nowadays you hear how gut health is so important because like the way your whole body functions and your brain and like your neurology is really a reflection of what's happening in your gut. And so many diseases today, Goldie, actually start from your gut and like an unhealthy gut. So this is a very great comment, Aggie.
That's why it's important to eat torshi.
Oh, would you like to explain what torchi is?
Torshi is just like pickled vegetables. So, in like Iranian cuisine, um, we like it's one of our like common like staples, like sort of like a side dish that we have with like every single one of our meals is pretty much like pickled vegetables, right? And pickled vegetables, and I know a lot of different cultures also, yeah, exactly, like kimchi, exactly similar to kimchi, 100%. So a lot of different cultures will have like a side dish that's like pickled fermented vegetables, right? And that pickled fermented whatever happens, that actually contributes to positive like gut health, right? So yeah, you want to like maintain like good like gut health, like have fermented vegetables, whether it's pickles or, torshi or kimchi or whatever. I personally, I love kimchi.
I love kimchi too.
Yeah, so
very,
good.
very delicious.
Oh
But
my God.
sometimes, Goldie, when I get kimchi, like my whole fridge just smells like kimchi. Like
I know it's worth it. It's
yeah,
so
yeah, it is. It is worth it. I just feel like
It's
I like need to find a better way to like contain the smell in
Yeah.
my fridge. But yeah. Okay. Protect your gut biome. Eat more torshi. Next up, we have Tulsi again with another comment. What about the serpent and rainbow case in Haiti? I'm not familiar with this one. Let me see what I can find. Goldie, have you heard of the serpent and rainbow case?
No, I'm looking this up right now.
Haiti. Let's see.
So apparently, it refers to the verified 1962 medical death and then subsequent 1980 return of Clairvius Narcisse in Haiti. Oh, apparently he was poisoned, paralyzed, and buried alive by a sorcerer to be used as a slave.
Wait, is this like
home 18 years later?
Is this like a story or this is like something that actually happened?
Well, I mean, okay, so I just looked this up. This is what I'm seeing. Like, wait, let me. So apparently, it's verified. You know what? You should probably look into this and make a video on this. So apparently, some person like it's verified. It's verified. Apparently, 1962, he had a medical quote unquote death. And then, but in 1980, he came back. So he was poisoned, paralyzed, and buried alive by a voodoo sorcerer.
Wow.
And then 18 years later, he wandered home. His harrowing experience was meticulously investigated by Harvard ethnobotanist Wade Davis, who detailed the scientific and cultural reality of Haitian zombies in his book, The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Wow.
Okay, I feel like you really need to do like a follow-up video on this.
I feel like we need to go to Haiti and do some like
No, we are not going to Haiti. No.
Visit like a sorcerer in Haiti and ask them about this?
No.
Investigative journalism? No. Not into that? Okay. Okay, well,
it's too dangerous to go to Haiti.
Okay. Fair. Well, Tulsi, thanks for the question. And you know what? We'll look into that and get back to you on the
I feel like that would be a cool video to like a follow-up video about your zombie live stream.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so next up we have Laura, who became a member. Wow, welcome to the Gamma Rangers, Laura. We are so excited to have you. And yeah, we have some fun perks in the Gamma Rangers, so happy to have you. Next up, we have Atgi, who gifted 5 GammaRay Report memberships. So we got another 5 Gamma Rangers. Welcome to the team. Thank you so much, Atgi. Really exciting. And then next up, we have Gabriel.
So I this was not a super chat, but I started because when you were asking about, what are some of your favorite zombie movies, Gabriel said Train to Busan, and I was like, yes, like Train to Busan, one of the most amazing and most terrifying zombie movies I've ever seen. I think we watched it together at some point, Rose.
I don't remember this movie.
It's the South Korean movie.
I haven't
where they're on the train or they're on the train to Busan.
I haven't seen it.
I think it was on Netflix at some point. Anyways, it's terrifying.
Okay.
Everyone, you want to see like a terrifying zombie movie? Go watch Train to Busan. It's terrifying.
Okay. Thanks for the suggestion, Gabriel. Next up, we have Tony with a super chat who says, when you complete lessons at the Gamma Ray University, you get an enlightened degree with the Albert Einstein emoji. I love that. That's so great. Thank you so much, Tony, for the super chat and for the comment. We have some very creative viewers, Goldie. They come up with
Very intelligent. You have a very intelligent community, Rose. So you're very lucky there. Like you just have
I
you have
am very
some
lucky.
amazing viewers. Yeah. And I love the comments. I love the inside jokes. It's fantastic.
Yes, yes, it is. Okay, so next up we have Major, who says species jumping is hyper rare, but it is not unknown. Yes, you know what, Major? That's actually true. And so species jumping, I did a little bit of research when I was going
Oh
over.
wait, can I guess some of the like diseases or whatever that were like from species jumping?
Okay,
So AIDS. AIDS
okay,
apparently was like chimpanzees jumping to humans. Rabies as well. And then apparently COVID-19. And I know there's a lot of like, theories about that, but apparently COVID-19 was basically bats going to humans as well. So, yeah, there's been quite a number of diseases
yeah,
or incidents that have like jumped from, animals to humans, and AIDS, rabies, and COVID-19 are
yeah.
all examples.
Yeah. So it certainly is rare, but it's not unknown as Major mentioned. And like it happens through like random mutations within the species combined with natural selection. And like most of the time, like a species jump fails, it doesn't actually survive it. Um, but like a pathogen that infects one species is usually like highly specialized for like a particular species' biology, which is why it fails when it tries to jump from one species to another. But occasionally there is some sort of mutation that happens which allows the pathogen to survive and reproduce and then spread in that new species and that new host. And yeah, like as you mentioned, AIDS and COVID potentially are some of these diseases that originated in animals before eventually jumping and infecting humans.
And,
Um,
Rose, I actually think like maybe I'm wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like one of the reasons that these diseases or illnesses or whatever, the ones that species jump and survive, the reason that they're even more deadly is because once they species jump and they survive, that basically means that, there's like they've mutated to a point where there's nothing in that habitat to stop them. So it's like a super disease in a way, right? Because a normal pathogen or disease or whatever, when its species jumps, it would die. But the fact that its species jumps and survives means that the immune system of the new species is not able to block it or prevent it in any way. So that's what makes it deadly.
yeah, so it definitely helps with making it a lot stronger because like it has to overcome of like a wide variety of barriers during that jump. And like because it's able to survive these additional barriers, like entering the new host cells and then surviving that particular host's immune system, which could be different from the other host's immune system, and like then it has to actually reproduce. And so because it's able to do all of that through this like new mutation, it does help it to become that much stronger. So very, very eerie.
Wow.
But yeah, thanks for the comment and super chat, Major. Next up, we have Atgi, who says, I grew up in the UK during the mad cow disease outbreak in the 90s. I remember always seeing zombie cows on the news and then hearing it jump to humans. Yeah, mad cow was quite scary. I don't hear about it too often these days, but it was definitely quite big in the 90s. Well, did you remember hearing more about mad cow?
Yeah, because I was actually alive at that time.
I was alive at that
Yeah,
time.
you were a baby at that time. But no, like I remember mad cow disease, like, as a child, and it was like a very scary thing. And yeah, like it was wild. Like there was just like this whole period where all these cows were just being slaughtered and no one was buying beef or anything. But
Yeah. And
yeah.
the scary thing about mad cow is that we spoke about this like briefly last time and last week's episode when someone brought up prion disease because like mad
That's what it is. Yeah, the prion diseases, and it's like incurable.
yeah, so mad cow isn't like a virus or a fungus or a bacteria. It's a prion, and a prion is like a misfolded protein.
Yeah, they fold weird. And the weird fold kills you.
So yeah, I guess like a simplified explanation. Yeah, so prions are these proteins that have folded into an incorrect shape, and that misfolded prion causes other normal proteins in its vicinity to also misfold, and it kind of creates this like explosive chain reaction, and then over time these abnormal proteins accumulate in the brain, cause brain damage, you know, affect the brain tissue. They create like these holes in the brain, and then it like I've heard like sponge like appearance, which is like what happens to your brain after a while. And
Oh my god.
yeah, so definitely very scary, and you know, you don't want to deal with this or have anything to do with this. Um, but yeah, mad cow can be, I guess, like another category which we didn't really cover. So very interesting, Aggie. Thank you so much for bringing this up. But I guess there's like a separate prion category that we could also worry about, Goldie.
Wait, I like this comment from Omid. Wait, where is it? What he says, insane in the membrane. Insane in
Insane in
the
the
brain.
brain. Yes, insane in the membrane.
That's pretty much what's happening with the prion disease.
Very true. Next up, we have Minor Dine. Thank you for the super chat. Who says we are approaching RoboCop level tech knowledge? Are we morally developed enough for such power? You know,
Rose, I just want to add, like, so I remember Minor Dine made this comment when you were sharing that documentary about the part where the human died, and then it was like the scene where it's like the body is like it's space, and it's like the soul and like the consciousness and being revived. So yeah, like I agree, like we're literally approaching RoboCop level tech knowledge.
yeah. We definitely are, but like the question of whether we're morally developed enough for such a power, like I guess it depends who you ask.
Loaded question.
Yeah, like I want to say like there are so many good benefits and implications for something like this. Like think about like people with paralysis or like lost limbs, for example. Like being able to use this sort of technology and like control other organs and limbs through like electrical synapses, and like even helping someone walk again after a spinal cord injury is like considered to be an amazing benefit and like a medical miracle. Like if you can make someone who's permanently in a wheelchair walk again because you're able to, you know, use some of this technology, then yeah, like that would be amazing. But you know, when we covered like uranium enrichment and we covered the discovery of the atom bomb, you know, that scientists who split the atom didn't realize that it would amount to the development of the atom bomb and, you know, lead to what eventually happened. So, you know, it could always be a slippery slope with these kinds of things. You develop something with good intent and for, you know, good intentions and to help humanity, but there's always a risk that people can take it and use it for some of these nefarious purposes as well. So what do you think, Goldie? Are we morally developed enough?
I think it depends on which society you ask.
Yes.
Like if we're speaking about, the United States, I would say that there are a lot of, checks and balances. So I would say, the United States society, I would say is probably more closer to being morally developed. When you're talking about, like the Islamic regime, no, right? Like, North Korea, no, right? So I think the question is contextual and based on like what society you're talking about.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Minor Dine. Next up, we have Fleshy Interloper. Thanks for the super chat. Who says there are fungi that can infect humans? Yes, there are. So there's you could get athlete's foot or you could get meningitis. One is a little bit worse than the other, but yes, there definitely are some of the ones that we covered. So there's the Cryptococcus, which has the very high threat scale and threat level, but again, doesn't mean that it'll make us zombies, but they can certainly infect humans. Next up, we have John Diamond, who says 2 years ago, I coded at the hospital. I knew nothing about it till 2 days later when she told me she thought she lost me. I can't explain it. I do not think anyone can. It has happened to. Wow.
You know what, Rose? There are a lot of people who've had like near death, or I just, I say near death experiences, but for many of them, it feels like they actually did pass, but then they came back. And sometimes it can be explained by science, and sometimes it can't. So, John Diamond, thank you so much for sharing that experience. And, first of all, I'm very glad that you're here with us and you survived. But yeah, like this happens a lot, Rose. And what I find really interesting, and maybe you can like maybe shed some light on this, but one thing I've always noticed about people who have had like these near death experiences, or maybe they've passed and they come back for some reason, is that they all have the same sort of experience about like seeing this like tunnel with the light, or this feeling of like elevation or astral projection or whatever, and then all of a sudden they're like sucked back into like this dimension or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm saying that properly or not.
No, this is fascinating and definitely something I've heard multiple times before because like a lot of people who have these experiences do see very similar things. I would just I would be very curious how I could cover that from a scientific perspective. I'd have to do some research to see like what the science behind that could actually be because a lot of it comes from like people recounting their experiences, which is, like a great piece of evidence, but when it comes to like proving something or providing evidence from a scientific perspective, like you need to be able to like test it beyond that. So I'd actually be interested to like do some research into that to see if there's actual like science-backed methodology that could explain like why do people have very similar near-death experiences when something like this happens. Maybe it's just like different chemical reactions that happen in people's brains and everyone kind of perceives them in a similar way, but very, very interesting.
Yeah, and like that's what I was going to ask you about, because I'm wondering if it's like some sort of like chemical reaction in the brain, or like the brain synapses acting in a certain way, because at the end of the day, death is, I would say, the greatest unanswered scientific question, right? Like there's been a lot of studies on it, but how do you really study death? Because none of us know what happens next, right? And that like death is the ultimate unanswerable question for those of us who are like in this reality. But
Yeah.
what you said is so smart, because it might have something to do with like the brain synapses, and because we're all human, and biologically we're all the same. Like maybe our brains react in a certain way, and those chemical reactions create the same experience that many people have when they're in that, when they go through that part. But anyways, all that to say, John, we're all so happy that you're here. We're
Yeah.
happy you survived. Thank you for being here, and God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John. Glad to hear that you're safe and with us and able to participate tonight. So thank you so much for that. Okay, the next one's not a super chat, but I wanted to highlight it. Just Chillin' 101. This was when I was asking about topics, and the reason I want to highlight this is because my dad, and hi Bubba if you're watching, has been asking me for like weeks to cover the Bermuda Triangle, and I'm like okay, like yes, it's on the list, but like it's not really like people don't really talk about it anymore. It's not really trendy. Um, I don't know like if there's much science behind it. I haven't like really done much research into it, so I'll have to do that. So when Just Chillin' brought this up, I was like, oh, it's validating what Dad's been asking me for weeks to cover the Bermuda Triangle.
Bubba is always right. You know
Yeah.
what, Rose? You should listen to Bubba. When Bubba tells you to cover something, it's because he knows. Because now everyone's asking about the Bermuda Triangle.
You know what? Chat, let me know if you would be interested to learn more about the Bermuda Triangle and see what's happening there. And whether it'd be a good topic to cover.
I didn't Amelia Earhart get lost in the Bermuda Triangle?
I think it, I think it was. I'd have to see exactly where, but
Tell me Bermuda Triangle. Oh my gosh. No,
okay.
it's all good. Yeah, well, I'll have to wear Bermuda shorts for the Bermuda Triangle live stream episode or video.
Yeah. Okay. So Aki's saying the possible reasons behind Bermuda Triangle, hurricanes, topography, etc. Okay. You know what, Bubba, you were onto something here. Thank you for suggesting it, and maybe it'll be one of our next ones.
And apparently, I was wrong about Amelia Earhart. She didn't get lost in the Bermuda Triangle. She got lost in the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But she's a phenomenal woman. Like I love her so much. Like what a brave woman.
Okay, we got Seeker the way here. Hi Seeker. So Seeker actually was the one who suggested the name Gamma Rangers. So thanks for thanks for coining the term, and so nice to have you here.
Well, Seeker is like the OG Gamma Ranger.
Yeah. Seeker is definitely the OG Gamma Ranger. And actually they also sent me some cool music that they made for me to use in like moments that we need like no copyrighted music. So there wasn't a need to play it tonight, but it's definitely reserved for when we need to mute some copyrighted music and play some fun tunes by Seeker. So very creative. Thank you so much for sending those over, and excited to use those in some future content.
I can't wait. You know what? You should maybe in your next live stream when you're doing a poll, you can take like a quick commercial break and just like play the music for like 60 seconds or something while the poll is going.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Goldie.
That would be cool.
Okay, so Seeker says, isn't there something that makes ants climb to be eaten by birds to continue their life process? Nematode, I think. So Goldie, this was I think you remember early on in the stream we talked about like insects that commit suicide. So there's actually this parasitic worm called hairworm, or nematorf, which is where this is coming from, and it can actually infect insects like crickets and grasshoppers and like different kinds of like ants, and manipulate them into like jumping into water. Which is where that parasite kind of needs to complete its life cycle. And so hairworms typically begin their lives in water, but they spend part of their life growing inside insects like crickets, for example. And then the problem for that parasite is that as an adult, it actually needs to return back to the water in order to reproduce and complete that cycle all over again.
Oh, so the parasite inside the cricket forces the cricket to go jump into the water and commit suicide so that the nematode can then reproduce and then
do
go
it all over again. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so now we have to, guys, not only are we afraid of mushrooms, we're now afraid of nematodes. Thank you.
But I don't know about the ant and the bird example. It could very much well like also be an example of nematode. I know specifically about like the cricket and the water suicide jumping. But yeah, there could certainly be a version or a variation of it that also affects the ants to get eaten by birds. But thinking more about that now, it would have to do something with the bird. So the parasite would need to return to the bird somehow in order to complete its life cycle. So I'd be interested to see like what it is that it has to do to like go back to the bird for the ant for it to cause the ant to want to do that. So yeah. And then our final super chat of the night is from Tulsi again, who says Clarkson Farm on Amazon Prime season 3, episode 5 and 6. I think this is in reference to their earlier comment about Penn is. So I'll have to take a look at that and see what it's all about. Goldie, I don't know. You have like a weird smile. I don't know if you know what this is or if you're just
No,
like,
I'm looking it up.
okay.
I have a weird smile. I was thinking about the cricket. I've never watched Clarkson Farm. So here's the summary. In season 3, episodes 5 and 6 of Clarkson's Farm on Prime Video, Jeremy shifts his focus toward maximizing the value of his farm's unfarmed and unconventional areas. He experiments with new crops, launches a cheap mushroom growing venture, and contends with unruly goats.
Okay. I think I'll have to watch it and get some.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to give spoilers, right? But it's definitely related to the show tonight. Definitely related to the show tonight. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, I'll have to take a look. Okay, Goldie, that was it for our super chats. Thank you everyone for your questions. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us. Goldie, thank you for being here with me and co-hosting. And I hope we gave you some more nightmare fuel for
Yeah,
today.
you did. Yes, you did. Yeah. On top of everything else that I deal with on a daily basis, now tonight I'm gonna have nightmares about mushrooms.
Just eat them. Just one final thing before I wrap up is that this might seem counterintuitive, but cordyceps actually have a lot of good health benefits for humans.
What? What are you talking about right now?
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna end on a positive and talk about all of the positive effect of cordyceps. So there are actually like supplements that people could buy of cordyceps in powder form. So people take like this extract from fungus and then make it into supplements. And it could actually be really good for like exercise performance. It's a really good anti-inflammatory. So anyone who has like inflammation, it's really good for that. And it's good like for antioxidant properties. So meaning it could actually reduce like cellular damage. So you know what, Goldie? Cordyceps for humans, it's actually, pretty good for your immune system. And,
I'll let you try it out.
Maybe I'll get some cordyceps supplements for our next live stream and maybe we could have some together.
You can have some. I will just casually watch and I'll be like, okay, let's see what happens there.
You'll see like spores coming out of my head. Like,
oh
God. Okay. So, guys, I think I'm going to call it a night. Goldie, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Everyone who's tuning in, we're going to go back to our regular schedule tomorrow. So make sure your notifications are turned on, guys. I have so much to talk about, but that's for tomorrow. This was a nice little, school field trip. And thank you so much, Rose, for hosting us. This was fantastic. Love your channel. And good night, everyone. We'll see you all tomorrow. Rose is going to take over now.
Yes. So guys, put on your seatbelts because we're jumping back on our Q400 And thank you all for joining us, and I'll see you in the next one.